I think that it'd be good to just get stuck in. I know that you've got a little bit of time to spend with us, Mark. I really appreciate you taking the time out. We've got a little bit of a structure here, not so much, but I'm definitely going to announce the winners of the book, your bundle of books that we announced just recently. And we've got 3 winners. That's them there, exactly. That's perfect positioning right there. And quite excited about getting them away to people. And we're going to take some questions, folks, as well. So if you've got any questions, please do put them in the questions part in Blab, so we know exactly where what's on your mind. Mark, just as a short intro for those, the part of this call actually is to introduce you to Mark Schaefer. A lot of people have probably heard of Mark, but maybe not sure exactly who he is and what he does. So as you can see behind Mark's head there, he's published 5 best-selling books in marketing, social media, content marketing. And to be honest, he's looked up to by a lot of my peers. And we learn a lot from Mark as well, just by reading his books, his podcasts, his content. And one of the things, just to share, with everyone, is that Mark has, I think, some of the best content out there, definitely. And the reason it's the best is because it's a lot of it's research led. Just reflecting on the Content Code, Mark, your most recent book, some stuff in there was just brand new to me. The concepts were new, and it's just great to have that cutting edge. Someone like yourself, Mark, out there that's willing to share all that information with people. So I really do appreciate that. Have I missed anything out? Do you want to give us just a really short, snappy introduction, Mark, to yourself? What keeps you busy? What's keeping you busy just now, and what do you get up to?
Well, I am a snappy person. So I had, for some reason, my text box isn't working here, and someone had a question about the podcast, Editor yes. Owen, and the podcast is called The Marketing Companion. I do it with Tom Webster, who is absolutely hilarious. I think that's one of the distinctive qualities. And what was the question?
The question was, what is your podcast, basically? What's
Why
it called?
am I snappy? No, yes, you wanted a snappy introduction. What? I'm distracted today. What was that? I've been in marketing for more than 30 years. Worked with big companies and big brands. Started my own company about 8 years ago. Started blogging about 8 years ago. And, most of my revenue in my business is driven by consulting, by speaking. I get a little income from the books, of course. I teach at Rutgers University in the New York City area. And in fact, next year, I'm going to be teaching even more. It's something that I love to do. And I would say, if you want to boil it all down, is that really I'm a teacher in everything that I do, whether it's a blog or a podcast or a SlideShare. I'm at a great point in my life where I've been around. I've had a lot of great experiences, a great education, and so it's time to send the elevator back down, as they say, and really share and help people. And I'm very rewarded by that.
Yeah, I think you do a great job of that, Mark. And I think that we've just come off the back of a workshop. I'm actually in the room that we just did our workshop in, our content marketing workshop, and we talk a lot about the philosophy of being a teacher. I think that really lends itself to marketing and communications these days. So I think it's great to hear that from you. I mean, could you just give us a little insight into, I mean, we're massively involved in content marketing. That's what the conference is all about, that you're keynoting next June for us as well. Yeah. Just give us a bit more of insight into how content marketing has played a role in throughout your career and to get you to where you are today.
Well, I mean, my career has been interesting. It's been in these different phases. And, actually I started out as a journalist. I was a journalism major in school and got into the business world, got into PR and sales, eventually marketing, and then got into teaching and consulting. And I mean, today, think about it, Chris. Let's think about this connection and why I'm here today. It's because of probably my blog and my books. And then maybe we got to know each other on Twitter. And now, I mean, you and I, we're starting to know each other. We're
Yeah.
collaborating in different ways, and you never know where that will lead. And on June 3rd, I'm going to be right there in Scotland, and we'll get to meet for the first time face to face, and hopefully, lots of people on the Blab today will get to meet me too.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you never know what will happen or where it will go. But it all starts with that ignition. It all starts with that spark. And the key is, I think, the links that you build, the connections that you build on social media are weak relational links. It simply opens up the door. So if you and I had just followed each other on Twitter and never followed up with a deeper conversation, the collaboration wouldn't exist. So I think some people have really overhyped expectations about social media and content marketing. It's still about building relationships for businesses in many ways, and there's no shortcut. You still have to do the work to take it to the next level. You just can't say, oh, I've got a blog that's going to save my business. That's, not usually the case.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, can you give us an insight into this sort of timeline of your content, your experience with content for your personal blog?
Well, I started blogging. I started dabbling in 2008 and started publishing consistently in 2009. And for the first 9 months, it was kind of, well, do I have time to do it or not? And then I started realizing that all of my new business connections were coming from the blog. Thought, maybe I better take this a little more seriously. So after about 9 months, I began getting more consistent. It took about 2 years to really find my voice, to get some traction, to start to get some growth. The blog started to grow. That led to my first book, which was the Tao of Twitter book, and then Return on Influence. I started the podcast about 2.5 years ago now, and that has really exploded. The podcast has become very, very popular. It's almost on every list of the top 5 or top 10 podcasts on marketing and business. And the podcast, I think our listener rate has like tripled in the last 6 months. So it's become very, very popular. I don't do a lot on YouTube. I really love Blab.
Yeah.
There have been 3 social media platforms. When I saw them right out of the box, I said, yes, this is going to be good. The first one was Twitter. The second one was Instagram. And the third one was Blab.
Wow.
Now, is Blab going to have the legs, the resources to really win? I don't know. I mean, Facebook is starting their own live streaming, but the thing I love about Blab and is number one, it's so easy.
Yeah.
Google Plus, it's just so complicated, and the Hangouts, and it just seems like every time I do a Hangout, something goes wrong. So the other thing about Blab that I like is that I like having a conversation with this. I felt like Meerkat or Periscope, you're holding a smartphone and you're saying, hey, it's me, it's me, it's me. And I'm uncomfortable with that. That's not really who I am. I really enjoy conversations like this. I think it's wonderful. I hope some of the people on the call today will join in so I can see you and meet you and ask questions, because I love that. I love this opportunity to see people face to face all over the world. And I think that's what's distinctive about Blab. And then after you finish your session, you get an audio file, a video file.
Yeah.
And so I'm starting to do Blabs regularly now. I think it's cool. It's interesting, and I learn from them as well. Yeah. So that's kind of the timeline. I've been doing a lot. I did a lot more slide shares in 2015. As I look forward into 2016, probably not a lot of changes. I'm thinking about some new forms of long-form content I'm playing around with, maybe some more visual type of content. So that's kind of the timeline over the last 7-8 years.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talking about Blab. I'm pretty sure it was you on your podcast saying that you're not a video type guy to Tom at some point. Maybe not even that long ago, I don't think. When you sort of mentioned video's probably not for me, and then the next thing I see you doing your Blabs, and I thought,
well, to me, the difference is I don't like it. I don't like to be the center of attention. I don't like me. Here we've got an exchange. I can see your face. To me, that's a huge difference.
Yeah, I think you're right. I really like the platform. Like you said, it's really easy to have access now and create that conversation. And you're right, it's completely different than Periscope, where it's all very self-centered and you can tell a great story there, but it's not much of a conversation if if it's one way audio. It's not great at all. I noticed something, this is relevant, I think. You mentioned something on Facebook yesterday, about how blogging is not dead. And we've ran our content marketing workshop today, and we've got all sorts of questions, and one of them is obviously how do we it's a noisy marketplace. It's how do we differentiate today with all this content out there? What's happening? How do we figure it out? And how do we make sure that we're creating content that's actually going to be seen by people? I know you talk a lot about content shock, so it's relevant to that, but your post kind of flagged this on Facebook that blogging is very much alive and well, but there's a lot of myths or misconceptions around that.
Well, I made a comment. I was on Mike Stelzner's podcast recently. I made the comment then that the blogging is dead, will be dead when reading is dead. and a lot of people get caught up in the semantics. What is a blog anymore? What is it? Is when you post on LinkedIn, when you publish on LinkedIn, is that a blog? Facebook now has notes and other ways to publish articles. Is that a blog? Is that a blog post? What is it? So let's just say to build a brand, whether it's a brand for your company or you as a person, you need a source of what I call rich content. So let me give you a quick example of what I mean by that. So a few years ago, I wrote this article about Clout, K-L-O-U-T. That this is a company that says we're going to try to measure your influence by what you post on social media. I thought it was interesting. They're using big data to look at influence. I wrote a post about it. Went viral. Lots of people loved it. A few weeks later, I got a call from a reporter from the New York Times, and she said, I'm doing an article about this new trend of influence marketing. Can I interview you for the New York Times? Crazy. Sure. The article is syndicated. It goes all over the world. Now, let me ask you something. Would that have happened if all I did was tweet? Would that have happened if all I did was post an update on Facebook? The answer is no. To have the opportunity to really establish a voice of authority and have the opportunity for massive reach, you have to have a source of rich content. Generally speaking, that is writing, call it a blog or whatever you want, but it's writing, it's video, it's audio, like a podcast, or possibly in some cases visual, like Instagram. So if you're National Geographic, certainly visual. If you're a photographer or an artist, visual is the way to go. But for most businesses, it's blog, podcast, or video. And so you have to pick one of those and say, well, or maybe a combination of those, but start in one place. Build your audience. Do it well before diversifying. This is a problem many businesses have. They say, oh my gosh, we got to be here. We got to be here. My friend just started a podcast. Oh, I need to do a podcast. And you're diversifying too fast. You need to build your audience on one place. Do it well. Build your audience. And then, it was a gut-wrenching decision for me to start a podcast. And the reason is this, because I knew I could not do anything to dilute the quality of my blog at businessesgrow.com. My blog is called Grow. I felt if I diluted the quality of my blog, I would be betraying my readers. My promise to my readers is when you spend time on my blog, you will see something interesting and compelling and timely and maybe even entertaining every single day. Every day. So my podcasting is still rather limited. I do a 30-minute show every other week. And I have a co-host, Tom Webster, to help kind of share some of the burden of the content. So, I mean, this was a big deal for me. And you can't chase every shiny red ball that comes through. You've got to focus and do something well and establish your audience on a platform.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And I think that there's one of the questions actually up here by Kirk McConnor. Advice when working within a market industry that's technology immature. There's a chance that none of our clients are on a certain platform, like Blab, for example. And you talk about, building your audience in one place. Literally had this question today where one of the workshop delegates here is just massively distracted by all the new trends, overwhelmed by this, new membership site stuff or this course or this marketing tactic to get more 1,000 email addresses in a day or an hour or whatever. And we talk about content marketing here and we keep it very simple, and it is about audience building. And you talk about this focus and this platform and rich source of content, this isn't complicated stuff. It's about the focus and the discipline and the determination and the habit of actually making this happen. But everybody, in fact, not everybody, most people really struggle with that. I don't know if you've got any points on that, or why is it that people don't do it then? Why are they not doing this?
Yeah, well, I recently wrote a blog post about this, and I want to make two key points. So if you look at research that shows where are most businesses, B2B or B2C, where are they spending their marketing dollars? Here's where they're spending it. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, maybe Instagram, maybe Pinterest. Now, if you looked at that same list 2 years ago, it'd be the same names. So why is everybody so overwhelmed? It's the people. You got to go where the people are. Now, maybe if you're looking at millennials, you need to be on Snapchat. You need to be on Instagram. Who knows? But I'm saying in general, the diversity in the social media platforms has not changed significantly in the last 2 years. So let's calm down a little bit. We don't have to be overwhelmed. We don't have to chase every new thing. Now, let's look at the new things. So every year I go to South by Southwest and everybody's looking at what's the new thing? What's the hot thing coming out of South by Southwest? So here are the hot things over the last couple of years. Ello, Quora, Foursquare, off the top of my head. Now, Meerkat was last year, right? Meerkat coming out. That was the hot thing at South by Southwest.
Yeah, I remember.
Here's Meerkat, okay? Now, here's the question. If you're is there a place for those things? Yes. Do some people love Quora? Yes. Do some people love Foursquare? Mysteriously, yes. But the point is, these are not mainstream channels. If you spent all your time devoted to these different channels, you're dwelling in a niche. And maybe you could, maybe you should. There's no cookie cutter answer. But for most businesses, go where the people are. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Google Plus. I don't think it's a mainstream social media channel. I know a lot of people love it. A lot of people are very defensive about it. But the fact of the matter is, it is simply not a mainstream social media channel. There's great communities there. There's opportunities there, but it just hasn't turned the corner to be a mainstream channel.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think being where the people are is a great point. But one thing that hasn't changed in the last, we talk about blog, really sort of like reference the rich source of content, the blogs, the podcast, the video channel. It just seems like, trying to build the business case for people, trying to convince them or get them bought into the fact that they should be creating this rich source of content over a long period of time. A lot of people understand it, they get why it works, but they just don't do it. They just don't invest the time, they don't put the effort in, whatever it might be. And it's quite frustrating, I guess. And it's just trying to get that across to people about how it works through case studies, perhaps. But and I'm reflecting on what we've talked about today, and at some point you have to take a leap of faith to do that thing, right? To write that first blog article.
Well, I'm not sure it's a leap of faith for a change in mindset. And what I mean by that is, look, I grew up in a business, where it's all about advertising and promotion and coupons and deals, and you put an ad out there, you put a coupon out there, and you can see a bump in your business right away. So people are saying, oh, well, look, should we spend our money here or spend our money in marketing, content marketing, and social media? We don't get that same bump. So, but it's not the same thing. It's not the same channel. So I saw this research that shows, I wrote about this recently as well, that people have been doing social media marketing for 1 year. Study of 4,000 marketers. 80% of the marketers said, we got a boost in awareness in the first year. That's pretty cool. About 25% of those same marketers said, we saw an increase in sales in the first year. So it's not going to happen in the first year. It's not going to happen in the first month. Facebook is not going to save you. Blogging is not going to save you. Now, for the people that have been working on this for 3, 4, 5 years, now you get 80% that say, I'm seeing an increase in sales. It's working. You can't compare social media and content marketing to advertising. You need to compare it to your investment in going to a trade show. It might take years to go to networking meetings. You go the first time, you're a stranger. You go the second time, maybe you see a familiar face from last time. You go the third month, and you say, oh yeah, we talked about soccer last month. How are you doing? It may take 6 months or a year before someone says, oh, you're that marketing guy. My brother needs help. And that's how content marketing works. It's about building trust. It's about building awareness that leads to engagement, and engagement that leads to trust. And eventually, I think if you stick with it for years, like I have, it leads to loyalty. I mean, there's dozens and dozens of people who my blog, they say, I start my day reading your blog. I get a cup of coffee, I open up my email, I read your blog. my writing, my work has become a fabric of their life. And that doesn't happen in the first month. That takes years. Now, is it worth it? I think it is. Is it a leap of faith? Maybe. But I think if you do it, I think there is a science to it. There's an art, but there's also a science to it, which I talk extensively about in the content code book.
Yeah. I think when I say leap of faith, I know the mindset is crucial in this whole thing. You've got to get it. You've got to be in it for the longer term. But you look at, it's good that you drew in a direct link between content and traditional just networking, because it's the same principles, isn't it? The sort of people get to know you, they get to like you, they get to trust you. You can't expect to build a relationship in the first few minutes or the first blog article. I think it's probably the biggest myth in content. Actually, you write and you publish an article, someone will buy from you. It's obviously it's never going to work like that. It's interesting as well. I'm just picking up on some of the points you raised there. You talk about, you mentioned it very quickly, B2B, B2C. It's a question that comes up time and time again. Is there a difference between B2B, B2C? We get things from B2B companies as well, or questions sort of around, that's all fine and well for a B2C type company. It works for them, but do you think there's an argument difference between B2B and B2C type companies when it comes to content marketing and social media?
I think it works better for B2B. B2B, it's more about personal relationships. The selling cycle is longer. And at the end of the day, in B2B, you want to make a decision that's not going to get you fired. You want to buy from not only a company that you respect and trust, but ultimately a person you respect and trust. There's lots of case studies out there. Let me just give you a quick example. I was working for a big pharmaceutical company, and they looked at this research, and they looked at they were trying to sell this new drug to doctors. They looked at this research and they asked the doctors, "Why are you buying this certain kind of drug?" And the top was, "Well, it helps our patients. Number 2, there's research that shows that they'll get better, da 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 da." And at the bottom of the list was personal relationships with the salespeople. So this company cut their sales force and focused on these other things. Makes sense. But I looked at this other research that showed their competitors were increasing their expenditures on salespeople. And every place they did, their sales went up. How is that possible? It's the direct opposite of what the research showed. Fact is, the doctors lied. They said what they put down what they're supposed to say.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, they buy from their buddies. That's the way business works. And to the extent that you can use content and use a social media connection to build those relationships, you can create a competitive advantage. No question.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that it's almost like a non-argument. But you're right. I think the works better for B2B. B2B are ahead of the game, I think, in some respects when it comes to this sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. What about the charity sector? I mean, we don't talk about it enough probably when it comes to marketing and things like that. We've got someone on the call just now that's working in the charity sector as a charity consultant. I don't know if we can advise on that. Is it different for charities? What could they or should they be doing differently? It's Caroline, actually. She's on here I don't know if you can see your chat box, Mark, but I'm trying to manage it myself here.
I can see the chat box, but for some reason I can't respond.
Right. Okay.
So you're just going to have to kind of read the questions and I can answer them. But the chat box isn't working. But let's look at charity. So why do people give to a charity? There's really, maybe 2 reasons. Number 1, it makes them look good, right? It's a badge. It's social proof that I've witnessed this firsthand. I used to be on the board of directors of Habitat for Humanity. And it was amazing to me how many people were on that board that did nothing. Nothing. They just wanted the badge to show on their resume that they're on the Habitat board of directors. Now, the second reason people are engaged and give to a charity is because they believe in it. They have an emotional connection. Now, how do you build an emotional connection? How do you maintain and nurture an emotional connection over time? They may hear your story, but then they go away and they get busy in their day and they forget about you. Social media and content marketing is a way to provide that drip, drip, drip of connection, to provide those provocations over time that say, hey, something amazing happened. We want to share with you. Mm-hmm. Here's a fantastic story. Look how we're using your donations. And maybe it takes months, maybe it takes years for them to say, you know, I just have such a great feeling about this. I mean, the example with Habitat for Humanity, my time is really limited. And I wanted to be devoted to a charity, and I had to it was a big decision. And I looked at charities and studied charities and learned about them for a long time before I decided Habitat changes lives. And I can do this with my hands, I can do this with my money, and I can have a stake in turning around a family. And so I created that emotional connection, but it didn't happen looking at a website one time. It just didn't. And it doesn't happen for most people that way. Yeah. So the idea of creating that emotional bond, connection through storytelling, is perfect for charities.
Yeah. Is the biggest sort of issue or challenge with charities is the fact that they're doing the exact opposite of that. They're always, it seems to me, and this is just an observation, this doesn't have to be fact, it's not fact, it's just what I see, that they're constantly asking. You know, they're out there always, you know, asking for donations. It's like the equivalent of a business constantly talking about their own products and services and trying to sell all the time. Do you feel that that's perhaps the biggest challenge or the biggest thing that needs to change and go more into the storytelling?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, let's say, you know, if there's some global emergency and the Red Cross needs money, that's the time to ask for money. So, I mean, I think there is some wisdom in that. But I think you're right that, I mean, this is the thing that fascinates me, and I guess it creates the opportunity for me. It's mystifying that social media and content marketing, it's not new. I mean, it's been kind of a mainstream marketing opportunity for the last 4 or 5 years at least now. And yet most companies, and I do mean most, and organizations and charities, they just don't understand how it works. They're checking a box. Oh, we have a blog. Oh, we have on Facebook. But they're not really optimizing it. They don't really understand the psychology and the sociology of how this works. An easy question is, look at your Facebook page. Look at your Twitter. Here's the business case for Facebook in one sentence. Come waste time with me. Okay. Now, look at your Facebook page. Would people want to waste time with you? Is that a good way for them to relax or learn or be entertained or to be inspired? That's not easy. But it's not about creating a blog post just to create content. This is a war for attention. It's a war. Every piece of content is a battle for attention. You have to approach it that way. 2 or 3 years ago, content was enough. It was a novelty. Today, content is not the finish line. Content is the starting line.
Okay, Mark, good stuff. I think the message is loud and clear, as far as I'm concerned anyway. I kind of want to go back, touch on something that you mentioned about this. I guess it's like the ubiquity of content, and there's like lots of people on different. Sorry about the alarm in the background. I'm in the city, so there's police or something.
Police, as long as they're not coming after you, we're good.
I don't think so. I hope not. You never know. A team laughing in the background here now. You mentioned earlier about, we talked about rich source of content, and we started talking about all these platforms, Facebook and things like that. And there's a question that came up today, whether it be flippant or not, was, are websites still important when we're talking about, we've seen some trends towards people saying you need to go where your customers are. You need to create content there. LinkedIn creating the facility for people to have longer form content. Facebook creating a facility for longer form content. You can quite easily see how someone that's kind of just coming into this game, even for people who've been in for a long time, asking themselves questions about, where the hell am I supposed to put my content? Where's the best place for it to go? And what are the potential consequences of me not, or publishing it on multiple platforms? It's getting quite complicated, right?
It is. It is getting quite complicated, and I think we're, another social media content myth I think we need to bust.
Okay.
Is one of the pervasive mantras is, don't build your house on rented land. So this means don't create your content that someone else is going to own, like Facebook. You have to have your own blog, your own video channel, and to some extent that's still true. I think you need a home base, you need an archive, you need a record, you need a community. But increasingly, it's getting very, very hard to pull those people to your blog or to your website every day, when billions of people are going to Facebook and millions of people are going to LinkedIn. They're there. They're naturally there. Now, here's the problem. We used to be able to rely on Facebook and LinkedIn as a good distribution channel for our content. You could post a link. Say, hey, everybody, I've got this interesting new idea. Here's a link. Go visit my site. Facebook doesn't want you to go away from Facebook. Yeah. They don't want a link. They want you to publish on Facebook. LinkedIn wants you to publish on LinkedIn. It's time to raise the white flag and submit to Facebook and say, okay, we're going to publish on Facebook. And increasingly, I'm doing that. I've been doing experiments with that. But the bad news is it's not driving people back to your site.
Yeah.
The good news is when you publish on Facebook, you get a lot more people to see it. So we're going to have to, once again, adapt, adopt, adjust, overcome, because this really, what worked 2 years ago or even a year ago doesn't work anymore. So we have to adopt and adapt.
Absolutely. And you've got to try stuff.
Let's get to some other great questions here.
Yeah.
Let's get to some of these other questions. I'll try to be briefer with my answers.
Yeah, I'll just throw them at you. I'm struggling with content for blog posts, bearing in mind they should sometimes be technical orientated. Has anyone got any ideas as to where I could get business content that I can share with clients? Is this potentially about curating content?
You might be curating, but I would just say, what is the content that you love? Share it throughout the day. As you see it, as you consume it, share it. There's also great sites like BuzzSumo, which highlights, or Buffer is another one. It highlights the most popular content being shared by your industry or your influencers. That's another great place to get content ideas if you're looking to share.
Yeah.
How about another? I want to get to as many questions as possible.
Any tips on reaching corporate decision makers? I'm assuming within the context of what we're talking about.
One word: LinkedIn. I think a lot of people still, LinkedIn is a vastly underused platform, and you can't be spammy, but it's amazing how much connection I get through my content on LinkedIn. how much sharing I get with my content on LinkedIn. So if you create value on LinkedIn, you can create those relationships just like Facebook or any other platform.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think that answers the question. It's about being in the right place where your audience are as well. I know that I think it definitely works. It definitely works. How can businesses team up with charities using social media for their mutual benefit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a super idea because one of the things I wrote about in the content code was this idea of the heroic brand. So it's a big concept, but what I found is that sometimes people share your content because of who you are, not just what you wrote. Sometimes the content doesn't even matter. How do we build that heroic brand? One of the key foundations is that people want to know that you stand for something beyond the business. This is especially important with millennials. And you can't fake it. You can't just give it lip service. But I think the companies that are passionate and authentic about this, it shines through, and it certainly augments the brand. And I think it's not just the right thing to do; it's the smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
To show your true colors about where is your heart.
Yeah. I think that gets people excited and they can connect. You talk about the emotional connection quite a lot, and that's what we're really looking for, isn't it? It's that why. I mean, Simon Sinek is what we talk about. People buy your why, buy into your why, and I think that's you've got to get that through your content. Reference a question earlier. It's kind of follow on. It's should you write different content for LinkedIn, or can you post the same content on there that you do on your blog? Is it okay to post the same content all over social media as you do on your blog articles?
Yeah. Well, let me approach that on two levels. One is a theoretical level and one is a practical level. The theoretical level is that you should try to tweak the content as much as you can for the different channels. The practical response is, who has time to do that? And here's what I find. A lot of people say, how many people read your blog? And my answer is, I have no idea. Literally, I have no idea. Because a page view doesn't mean they read it. What's the open rate on the RSS feed? Maybe it's 30% or 35%. Does that mean they read it? I don't know. But what I find is when I repurpose content, and it'll start as a blog post, and maybe I'll get some comments that I can incorporate in something else and make it better. So I can take a blog post, which is my big, rich content, my fuel for social media. I'll tweak it, maybe post it on Facebook. Tweak it, maybe post it on LinkedIn. Make it into a SlideShare presentation. Create that as a topic for a podcast. And most people react, like on LinkedIn, like, well, I never saw that before. This was really great. Never heard of this before. So they didn't see the blog post. They didn't read the blog post. You can't. I've got this vast audience, but a small percentage, less than probably 25%, actually see the blog post every day. So you can easily repurpose this, and it'll still seem fresh to most people.
Yeah, that's
okay. Because I'm seeing here the duplicate content thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, I wouldn't worry about that if you publish on your website first.
Okay. Publish
on your website first, and I think you'll be okay. Most of Facebook is kind of behind a firewall anyway.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is a little bit more public, and certainly has a huge site authority. But publish on your website first. Give it a couple days, then publish it other places. I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, it's not like you're publishing it in 100 different websites that's going to look like duplicate content anyway. And the other part of that, Mark, is that I don't think I've ever searched Google and been redirected to a LinkedIn article You know,
Not yet, not too much.
no, I think it's still got to be. It's still take. You want people to get back to your website through organic search, right? That's we're going to, you know, search is a big part of that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking that I'm conscious of time, obviously, and I'm thinking about. There's two things I definitely want to ask you. One is what's next, right? We're in December. It's a perfect opportunity to ask you what are the main themes, you know, from your perspective. What should we be looking at for 2016?
Well, in my mind, I know there's a lot of, you know, prediction posts out there, but in my mind, there's just no question what the number one issue is, what the number one trend is that affects everything we do, and that is this. In fact, it's at the heart, really, of every question that's been asked today, and it's this. How do we overcome this overwhelming information density to get our content to be seen, to get it to be shared? The economic value of content is zero unless it is seen and shared. So we have to think, all the conversation in marketing has been about two things. How do we create more content? How do we build our audience? But you got to connect the dots. There's a third idea. Sure, you need great content. Sure, you need to build an audience. But you have to focus on ignition. Who sees it and why? Where do they share it? How do they share it? Why do they share it? Who's sharing it? I've been going around and talking to businesses about this. I ask every business, do you know who shares your content the most? The answer every time is no. This is the bedrock of your business. This is the economic driver of social media and content marketing, and yet we don't even know who our biggest fans are. Isn't that a good place to start? If 2% of our fans are sharing the content the most, here's the marketing plan for 2016. Turn that into 3%, and then turn it into 4%. And this is really, this is the main theme of what I'm going to be talking about when I visit you in June. And I hope everybody will come and come out and see me, and let's talk about this a lot more. This idea of information density, because this is going to affect everyone's budget, their content, their strategy, what platforms you use. Mm-hmm. It's gonna forge innovation, new content types, new content forms, new platforms that will help us stand out. It's by far the most pervasive and important trend of 2016 and probably beyond.
Yeah, and why is that, Mark? Why is it? Why is this?
There's too much stuff.
But why
there's too much content.
Yeah, I appreciate. Like, I think there's the whole content shock theory. But why is what's they going to achieve though? How's that going to make the difference? How? Do you want to talk a little bit about how social sharing is as an influencer, like how much it does actually influence people?
Oh, it's everything. You know, let me give you 3 facts.
Okay.
All developed from very good research. Number 1, 85% of the people. Now, when people share content, take a step back. This is a big deal. It's a very intimate act for someone to share content. I mean, in the marketing business, we may share content to help our friends or whatever. But for most people, this is a big deal. When people share content, they read it. They immerse themselves in it. 85% of the people who share content say, I understand this company and this product and this service better when I shared the content. The act of creating people who share content creates advocates. Sharing creates advocacy. 70% of the people in a piece of research from 2013 from the New York Times, probably the best piece of content marketing research ever done. 70% said, my purchasing decision is affected by content I see shared on the web. That is an enormous number, an enormous number. Last statistic, Boston Consulting Group. In my book, I talked about this group. This is the alpha audience, your most important audience, the people who are sharing your content. These are your advocates. I call it the alpha audience. Boston Consulting Group just did a study. They call it your apostle audience, the people who are sharing your gospel, right?
Yeah.
Here's what they found in their research. Your advocates create 8 times the business for you as other consumers. By sharing your ideas, by sharing your content, your services, your products, they create 800% more business than any other person, any other customer. So this is, it's not only vital, this is where we absolutely have to focus our attention. And it's an area rich for debate and discussion and discovery.
Yeah, love it. I think it's going to be a great discussion, Mark. We'll look forward to digging right into that in 2016 when you come over to Scotland in June, on June the 2nd, June the 3rd.
Can't wait.
Yeah, and I think that I think that those statistics you just shared with us has got to be the case for content as well, because if you don't have the content, then you can't get the share. So you kind of have to have, it's just it's unbelievable. People need to catch on to this thing. I can see that you've got the passion there, Mark, that people need to see that, I think, and take heed, take notice of what it is that you're saying. I'm conscious of your time. We've got a few minutes left, and we have got 3 people to give away 4 of your books. I haven't got my books with me, but you can see them in Mark's window there. There's 5 of the books. We've got 4 of those: Social Media Explained, Content Code, The Dial of Twitter, and Born to Blog. Those 4 books, 3 winners. I don't have their names. I've got their email addresses, which is frustrating. But I think one is Peter Brash, who's won. So congratulations, Peter. I don't know if you're online. If you are, say hello to Mark, and we'll send those books out to you. And we've got one as Chris. Now, I know Chris. I can't remember his second name through Twitter. So congratulations to Chris. And I've got one more winner, which is, I don't know what the name is because the name's not in the email address. But I'll send an email out to everyone to say congratulations. In fact, I've already done it to tell them that they've won the book. So congratulations, guys. And thanks for everyone for entering the competition as well. Mark's coming over. I mean, Mark, tell us how excited you are about coming to Scotland in June.
Well, I have a Scottish heritage. My wife has a Scottish heritage. We visited Scotland on vacation 2 or 3 years ago, and I can't wait to come back. In fact, I'll tell you a quick funny story. I've been working on my genealogy, and I found the small town in Scotland where my family came from. And I was in a cab in Glasgow, and I asked the cab driver, we were going around the city, and I said, have you ever heard of this town? Where is it? And he said, that's where we are right at this moment.
Okay.
And it just, oh my gosh, what a warm feeling. What an incredibly powerful feeling to know these are my roots and this is my heritage. And looking around, this is where my ancestors came from. This is the land that they farmed. And so I can't wait to come back. We love whiskey. We love the people of Scotland, and we love the country. And we're so excited. I'm bringing my wife with me. We're going to turn it into a vacation.
Awesome. That's amazing news. And you've never actually spoken in Scotland before, is that right?
No, this will be a first.
I think that we need to talk. We've just covered an hour there, and it seems like such a short space of time. So I think we need to talk about how, when you come over to the conference in June, how we're going to maximize your time there, because I think there is so much that you'll be able to cover. So We need to look at exactly what the format is and what to cover, because I think that you're just an absolute wealth of knowledge. And I think we're starting that. I think a lot of the people, actually, I noticed the names in here, a lot of them are coming to the conference. I've already bought tickets to the conference. So this is going to be a good prime for them. They can take that time between now and then to think about what they want to ask you, and how they're going to get the most from that conference. But it's a 2-day event, Mark, in June. We have confirmed a couple of other speakers as well that I want to announce. Anne Handley is going to be joining us as well. And you guys are the first to know about that. She's coming over from Boston to join us on the 2nd and 3rd of June as well. So, and we've got a couple of other people coming from Europe and America as well. So I'm looking forward to announce that. Full 2-day event. We're going to have workshops. We're going to have case study-led content, and we're going to have keynote speakers just like yourself as well, Mark. So it's going to be a jam-packed event. It's going to be awesome. And it's going to be right in the heart of Scotland in Edinburgh. So great for a vacation if you're coming over from the States.
Awesome. And I love Anne. She's a great friend, an incredible thought leader in this space. So that is amazing, Chris. This is going to be really an amazing event. Can't wait to go.
Going to be great. I mean, we are covering all the things you said today. Social media. We're going to be talking a lot about blogging. We've got Kate McQuillan's going to be speaking, who's online just now on the call. Kate McQuillan's going to be talking about her experience with blogging. She's done a massive amount in the last 2 or 3 years in content. We've got podcasting keynote speakers. We've got video keynote speakers, video marketing. So really covering that whole range of content marketing. So it's going to be a practical, motivational, insightful event. It's going to be awesome. If it's anything like last year, it's going to be off the charts. So we're really looking forward to it. Mark, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for taking the time out to speak to us. Really appreciate it. Seems like an hour's not enough. An hour's not enough. We want more time. But congratulations to everyone that won the books. Thanks for entering the prize draw. If you want to know more information about the conference, I'm going to pop the link into the chat, and get along, book your ticket. We've got a special offer on just now for £100 off the tickets, and there's only a limited amount of them. I think we've got 17 tickets left with £100 off.
Wow, so great.
Grab them. They'll be, once they're gone, they're gone. That's the only offer I wasn't even going to do an offer. That's the only offer there is at the moment for those tickets. So make sure you grab them. And I think we should sign off and say bye.
Thanks, everyone. It's been fun. I can't wait to see you in June.
Thanks very much, Mark. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to be awesome, guys. Catch you all later. Cheers.